Hi, I'm Em, and this is Fanfaria. Today, we're talking personal health. If we don't make time for health, then we will be forced to make time for illness. And never has that really been more true than over the last 2 years through this pandemic, in terms of it's put a real focus on looking after ourselves. It's put a real focus on making sure that we're trying to keep the surgery a place that's free of ill people, or like head cold, flu symptomatic people, because all of a sudden we've had our world turned upside down, and what was something that we just kind of struggled through or carried on with isn't acceptable at the moment, because those quite trivial symptoms can mean something much more sinister and severe, and in the age of trying to limit the spread of COVID, then we have to step up and pay a bit more attention to it. But this touches back on stuff that I've talked about before in terms of reluctance to take time off, and affected me personally this week because I needed to take time off myself and have a COVID test, which came back negative. But the whole process for that was quite jarring for me. So I don't know. I mean, I've talked about this before. I grew up in a household where you only got a day off school if you were dying, and woe betide if you asked to be picked up from school and you weren't properly sick. And I can kind of get that now as a parent myself, and having kids at school, and the inconvenience having to take your kids out of school to look after them at the expense of your day at work and having a sick day when you're not sick. But that's what sick days are there for. They're to rest, recover, and sometimes it can just be a sign, getting these things, that we have kind of burnt the candle at both ends and we're a little bit more run down, and it's nature's way of sitting us on our ass and telling us to take a break. So I have always suffered from hay fever. In recent years, I've had lots of kind of sinusy problems, and the last few weeks haven't been any particular exception to that. But here in New Zealand, we have just kind of let a lot of our restrictions go, and therefore Omicron is currently widespread within the community. And as such, anyone with cold or flu symptoms is being encouraged to go get tested, and it goes without saying that if you're working in a healthcare setting, that should be your easy go-to. So the reason I'm talking about it today is that it was still hard to take the day off on Monday. I mean, how ridiculous is that? You're in the middle of a pandemic, you've got the symptoms of possibly what everyone's looking for, and I'm still dismissing it as a cold and still telling myself that I need to just kind of harden up because I'm letting down those at work and I'm letting down my patients. And it's that mindset shift of, stop being the hero of the story here. The world will carry on without you for 10 days if needs be, and the patients will be fine. You're not the only dentist in the world. People will be looked after. Your staff will be better for not being exposed to you and your illness, as will your patients. But it should have been a no-brainer. It should have been an easy decision. And there I was, stood in my work clothes, umming and ahhing, and feeling like I'd admitted defeat with having to then go and seek out quite an arduous and time-consuming process to get tested and find out what was going on, and then try and sort the admin out around that in terms of the potential of isolating the household and everything else. So, to me, it just kind of put to front of mind that we've been taught to turn up to work no matter what. We've been taught to prioritise patients' well-being over our own, and over that of our staff, and that it doesn't just extend to sick days. It can extend to us putting ourselves beyond our limits to accommodate things that crop up at work. So, the immediate thing that kind of springs to mind is your patient that hasn't been in for ages and wants everything done there on the day, because the world will end if it isn't, or people that are panicking at the moment because for us here there's so much COVID in the community that they want to get their stuff done so they don't have to come back to you or expose themselves to situations where they'll see more people than they would if they were isolating at home or sticking to their usual routine. And we quite often do this. We think, oh no, that's terrible. We must get them out of pain. I don't have time to see them today, but there isn't time tomorrow and there isn't time Friday either. And it's the same kind of mindset shift we need for taking that day off. Is the world won't end. Yes, it's not ideal if someone has kind of toothache or a problem that has to be fixed a little bit later on. But at the end of the day, what's the cost of making that decision? So for me and my day off, or kind of days off waiting for results, the cost of me deciding to go be the hero and go into the work could be that I have got COVID and that I then unwittingly pass it on to my workmates, take the whole place out of work for at least 10 days, and that affects so many more patients than it would if it had been just those that were booked in my day on the Monday. And I think we have to kind of try and extend that to think about the patients that are putting unrealistic expectations on us, and they don't always realise that they're unrealistic. That makes it sound a little bit unfair in terms of the patient. We have gone a long way in the past to training patients to expect unrealistic outcomes in terms of, we've got a patient in, we must kind of make the appointment work, or the appointment, kind of keep things ticking over so the practice can kind of keep ticking over. That a busy day is more productive than an empty day, or appointments that are kind of just done as a consultation and bring back. But what they don't realise is the same way that, if you take your car into a mechanic and say, it's got a knocking noise here that it's had for 6 months, but I'm driving over the coast tomorrow and I need it fixed today, is that wouldn't be a realistic expectation there. But we get the same kind of scenario day in and day out with the dental practice, that a 30-minute appointment is going to fix the world, even when we don't know what's coming through the door. And I suppose in the same way as with the day off, we kind of have to look at what is the cost of accommodating that. And the cost of accommodating that, apart from kind of continuing that training of patient expectations that we will do things that are unrealistic and accommodate and push things back, are that what's the cost to your next patient who you're going to run late for, to your nurse who's not going to have your break, to the rushed steri you've got to do where you're more likely to kind of, make steri mistakes, but make mistakes of any kind of magnitude, and say, is that cost worth it? Because sometimes it can be, and on a one-off it can be, but if we're doing that all the time, the same as if we're turning up sick to work all the time, the costs kind of add up, and it ends up being something that's more self-serving than serving the team and serving your community. So I guess it's just kind of a bit of a rant today on bigger picture. A bit of kind of reflection on the fact that I don't think we'll ever take cold and flu symptoms with the same kind of blasé attitude that we have in the past. That hopefully seeing those patients that are, coughing and sneezing and have to stop the procedure to do something is something that in 5 years or 10 years time, young dentists will be just kind of jaw to the floor. What on earth do you mean you were seeing patients when they were that sick? I send anyone away that's got a bit of a sniffle. The world is changing and our mindset needs to change with it. We are part of a team. Even if you're a sole practitioner in an individual practice, you're part of the wider dental team in your community. And we have to look after ourselves and our team first, because if we don't, we won't be able to perform the treatments we want to treat and get people out of pain in the way that we want to get them sorted and things like that. So, yeah, just a mindset shift. And for someone that thinks about this kind of stuff quite often, I found it quite confronting that I found it so hard to take the day off this week. But on the plus side, all worked out well, and I'll find out when I go back to work exactly what chaos I've left in my wake. But it certainly appears that the world didn't end, and life will go on just fine. So look after yourselves. Put yourself first in terms of health, and try and extend that to think of the health of the team around you as well, because in the long term it will serve us better, and we won't be forced into accommodating time off for unnecessary sickness when our bodies do just sit us on our arse because they've had enough. All right, cheers.